Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Now, last week could be described as a week of two presidents. We started the week with President Muhammadu Buhari, who concluded his 2 terms, and now we're in the administration of President Bola Tinubu. Now, President Bola Tinubu has a lot on his plate to deal with, from a worsening naira to the economy to unemployment to security issues. Indeed, he is faced with a lot of challenges should Nigeria regain her place as the rightful giant of Africa. Now, if you listen to the inauguration speech, you'll know that there are quite a number of solutions the president is putting forward in his agenda of renewed hope. Nigerians should expect to see a unified currency. Nigerians should expect to see 1 million jobs in the digital economy and solutions to the myriad of security challenges, among others. Now, to discuss the BAT agenda, I have with me in the studio Nelson Ekujimi, who is a media personality and a good governance advocate. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thanks very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
And we're also joined via Zoom by a public affairs and policy analyst in the person of Dr. Jide Johnson. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it's also
good to have you on the program. Now, I'll go straight to our conversation. I mentioned in my introduction about the speech and the renewed hope that Nigerians are expecting, tackling a lot of the challenges the country is facing. What will you say is one thing that resonated with you out of the different things the president put forward in his inauguration speech?
Well, that is a tall order for me, because his speech reverberated around a lot of issues. He talked about security, he talked about power, he talked about the economy, he talked about, running a government of inclusiveness, and, unifying the country. So for me, the president's inaugural address, touched on a lot of issues. But, what resonated with me was that particular area of his speech where he said, "I will not rule over you. I'm going to govern you." And for me, that is the ethos of democracy. That is what democracy symbolizes. It's about discussions, it's about debates, it's about disagreement, to agree and what have you. So for me, the president being a Democrat, has, typified that in his inaugural address, and,
so as Nigerians, we should expect a bottom-up leadership rather than top-down?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, I would like to get your own view. What was the one thing that resonated with you, Nelson, Dr. Jide Johnson?
Well, it is the intention of the president to be the president of Nigeria and not the president of his party. That was also demonstrated by his body language, because if you watch that inaugural speech, he extended his hand to say, "I'll be the president of all, not the president of some." And I hope in actions and in purpose, the president will live up to that. Because what we have seen in the past is for people to want to have a myopic perspective to governance as winner takes all, but rather than to see that once election has ended, it is governance, and governance includes those that voted for you and those that voted against you, because they are all the citizens of your country and they are all taxpayers. So for me, it was very, very instructive when the president said, "I will be the president of all and not the
president of all."
Inclusive.
So that shows the inclusiveness that this government is promising.
Yeah,
and one would agree that the elections were quite divisive. So this whole uniting of both young and old, of people of different political affiliations, I think is very important if we are to progress in this democracy. Now, I want to move to one of the very touchy subjects of that particular inauguration speech, and it was that declaration by President Tinubu that fuel subsidy is gone. We know that there was no budgetary provision for fuel subsidy. But I believe Nigerians watching the inauguration speech didn't expect to feel the weight of what fuel subsidy is gone, looking at the queues and the exorbitant prices of transportation for some that just came out of the blue. Do you feel that that pronouncement was what led to the chaos, or do you feel that it's perhaps the oil marketers that are taking advantage of a situation to hike the prices, and what can we really expect from the removal of subsidy?
Well, the chaos that followed that announcement is symptomatic of our people's character, where people don't want to, they want to listen only to themselves. They don't want to face the reality of their situation. You recollect when the Petroleum Industry Act became law, we all saw it there when the subsidy regime will end. But sadly, because we still had the reverberating effect of the COVID-19 and its attendant global economic crisis, of which Nigeria was a part and parcel, the PIOA law was extended. And it was that extension that took it to the tail end of the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. And any discerning analyst or economist or anybody who is interested in a better Nigeria knew for sure that with the education and sensitization of the damage that subsidy has done to the economy, whereby for almost 8 years of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, he had to rely on loans, and what have you, because generating internally revenue was almost not there because the price of crude oil had fallen, and we're battling with oil theft, which drastically reduced our production. So when people come up and say President Muhammadu Buhari was borrowing money, you need to ask, if the government is not borrowing, and the government cannot raise internally generated revenue because of the, low earning capacity of businesses and individuals, where do you expect him to get funds to run government? Do you expect the money to drop from heaven like manna? Absolutely not, because we are not in the age of manna. So what has happened in this case is the reality of the Nigerian situation, that we all knew this was coming. And Mr. President, being a man of courage, has taken the right decision. So those who are crying foul now, we need to sit down with them and engage them and say, look, this is not about politics. This is about the reality of the Nigerian situation. You recollect.
I'd like you to hold on to that thought. Dr. Jide, for Nigerians who are saying, yes, this is the right step in the right direction in the removal of subsidy, but how do I now afford my transportation fare? Employers that are looking to get their employees in the office and they have to wait 4 hours, 6 hours to get to work, or some just don't have the transport fare, then what happens? Because we know that with the increase in transport, it affects other things like the price of food and basic amenities.
Leadership are elected or appointed to take tough decisions. And it's also the responsibility of the media to hold leadership accountable. I think in the last 8 years, the media has failed Nigerians in not holding the last administration accountable. We pandered a lot to that administration. I hope in the next 8 years we'll not do that, because I see no reason why we'll be borrowing money. If you listen to the explanation Mele Kyari gave with respect to subsidy, the reality is that we have to remove the subsidy, no doubt about that. But Nigerians have been left in the dark. A lot of things have not been explained to Nigerians for Nigerians to come with the reality of things and face it squarely. And also, my colleague was talking about the politics of it. Don't forget that the ruling party now, and since 2015, played politics with the issue of removal of stress subsidy or non-removal of stress subsidy in 2015. So they sowed the seed, and the seed germinated now, and they see that the reality of it is that we must remove this fuel subsidy. So I think what every Nigerian should do and should take note of, we should brace up for the reality of time. And government needs to, when I mean government, I'm talking about the federal government, and I'm not talking about the presidency alone. I'm talking about the National Assembly. By June 13, the National Assembly will be inaugurated. I think the leadership of the National Assembly, the leadership of the president, should engage critical stakeholders. There is the need for an engagement in order to address, to ameliorate the pains pains, because there will be some pains that will come with
And
this.
it's
There's no doubt
interesting you
about that.
say that there will be some pains and we should brace up for the tough realities of this removal of subsidy. But in removing subsidy, I know that the outgoing president, President Muhammadu Buhari, outgone president, had taken a lot of loans in the last minute. And some of these loans, it was believed, like the World Bank loan, to provide some kind of cushioning effect for the less privileged, with those who don't earn as much, because this effect of the removal of subsidy is definitely going to bite really hard. We're still dealing with high inflation of food. So do we believe that this government, or do you believe that this government will appropriate those funds to the right channels and ensure that those who are at the margins are really protected against these harsh realities?
Absolutely, I have no doubt in my mind that the government would judiciously expend those funds. But also, like my colleague on the other hand said, there's no gain without pain. For a woman to have a baby, she has to suffer the inconvenience of being pregnant for 9 months and all the,
But during that 9 months, you know that this pain is going to come, and say maybe 1 day or 12 hours you're going to have this baby. But what you're telling Nigerians is that this pain might go on for more than 1 day, more than 1 week, more than 1 year.
No, I can't. We as human beings, we cannot predict what the future will be like. We can only forecast. But knowing the antecedents of the new government and calling on Nigerians themselves, like he has rightly said, to hold the government accountable, I have no doubt in my mind that this pain, the gain that will come after this will be worth the pain. Also, you're talking about the $800 billion World Bank loan. Don't forget, the World Bank is not a thrift collector living behind my house. The World Bank is an international agency. And for the World Bank to assess you any of its facilities, there are procedures to be followed. And if the World Bank is giving you XY amount of money, don't forget, the World Bank will not just give you that amount of money and go to sleep. The World Bank also has a monitoring arm of its institution doing that. So, by and large, the essence of the President Muhammadu Buhari's $800 billion loan from the World Bank was to cushion the effect of this fuel subsidy removal, which the new government has inherited. And as we have all come to admit, that government is a continuum. The new government has that responsibility to do justice to that fund. And for me and millions of Nigerians, we are more than confident that the new government will do it. But also, we as citizens, we have a role to play in ensuring that we play our part in holding government accountable.
Definitely agree with you that government needs to be held accountable, and we need to move on to the issue of security. When we look at security, we're looking at protecting the lives of Nigerians, not just Nigerians in a certain part, but across Nigeria and their property. Do you believe that this government, based on the inauguration speech, and also some would say the body language, because we had a president that came in being, I'm from the military, I'm going to tackle Boko Haram, I'm going to tackle insurgency. Do we still see that kind of body language in President Tinubu in tackling the security challenges that Nigerians face?
No, it has nothing to do. You see, sometimes we limit governance to individuals. We personalize governance. And governance is a collective responsibility. Collective responsibility says that you need critical stakeholders. And that was one of the major mistakes in which we made with President Muhammadu Buhari. Everything was limited to him. As if say bye-bye, then you give him an overarching personality that is larger than the state. What I think the president should do is to have a collegiate leadership. Collegiate leadership in the sense that involve critical stakeholders in the National Assembly, in the Council of State, and Council of State, traditional rulers, engage critical stakeholders in dealing with this issue of national security, because it's a major problem. If we don't have security, if you can't secure lives and property, then you can't do business. If you can't do business, there can't be economic growth. If there is no economic growth, the standard of living and the cost of living cannot improve. So basically, that issue needs to be addressed. And how do we need to address this? One, the president needs to have an holistic and a nationalistic approach to a security architecture. If you check the security architecture of Buhari's administration, it was too narrow-minded. It was too narrow-minded. It was nepotistic, that they could even speak one language in his National Security Council, and then nothing. They could speak one of the Nigerian national language and not English language, and they will get on with it. I think the president needs to ensure that the security architecture cut across the length and breadth of Nigeria, one. Two, cut across the length and breadth of the age group. You see, you need, in fighting modern day security warfare, you need technology. You need
Dr. Johnson, I'd like to get Mr. Nelson's views on the security architecture, like you rightly pointed out. But also, as you're answering the security question, I'd like to get your opinions on the way forward in the growing Nigeria's GDP. Some will argue that we need to have more investments coming in, create an enabling environment for the private sector, and also for foreign direct investment. So I'd like you to first of all react to the security question, and then let me have your views on growing Nigeria's economy.
On the security question, it is agreed that in addressing our security challenges, we must not only focus on the kinetic approach, but as well as a non-kinetic approach. The last administration has done tremendously well in equipping, and motivating our security agencies. I listened to the chief of air staff, who said, under the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, he procured 49 brand new aircrafts.
But does that translate into Nigerians feeling safe? I mean, we have countries who constantly issue all these travel warnings against Nigeria. Don't go to certain parts of Nigeria. Do you feel safe in the past? Have you felt safe in the past 4 years?
I've felt safe more than ever. I've traveled every part of this country. A lot of those travel advisory are political.
So what about in the southeast, where the economy is being hampered because there's a sit-at-home order? Or what about the headsmen clash with the farmers? You might be in the urban area, but are those people feeling safe?
You see, the headsmen farmers clashes has always been with us. But unfortunately and sadly, we allowed a tiny segment of our society to ethnicize and religionize that issue. It became, if a man fights with a wife, oh, he's a Fulani headsman, he has beaten the wife. If a vehicle gets involved in an accident, oh, he's a Fulani headsman that caused. So we've lost focus of the issues and allow people to lead us all astray. And even when the government came about with the livestock transformation program that would have also aided in providing solutions for the problem, you saw how it was blown out of proportion, how it was made to look like an ethnic issue. And talking about the non-kinetic approach, what we need to do majorly is that in those areas where we have security threats, just like in every part of the country, we should look at those issues that give rise to the insecurity. And those issues are local. A lot of times people make the mistake of ascribing security breaches, resolution to the federal government, as if the states and local government exist not to do anything.
So do you think that state policing is the solution if we're to localize the solution?
There's no one solution to a national problem. There are so many routes to solving it. But most importantly is that the people themselves must desire peace. The people themselves must work for peace. You can't be causing trouble and want to run the security agencies to death over your own, internal crisis. Because the security agencies do not live in your house. They don't know your local problems. It is when you escalate it that they get to know. But when you cause crisis somewhere and you run to your own enclave, and the other part is now retaliating and you are shouting, you have not done well. I recollect, I'm a Yoruba man, for example, and in my own part of the world, they say, it means an elder must not be in a town and the head of the infant becomes turned the other way. We have irresponsible elders that cannot mentor the youths in the right way. Elders that when the youths are going astray, they turn the blind eye. And that is why we are in this sorry state. Our elders in various communities have abdicated their responsibility.
So that responsibility of securing the lives and property, in your opinion, is a collective responsibility.
Absolutely. That's
not just the presidency
not
or
just
the
the government,
state.
not even the government. Don't even go to the not that of the government, but the responsibility of all. They're talking about the GDP you talked about, foreign direct investment and local investment. You recollect that the president said he's going to ensure that power becomes accessible and affordable. And he was assuring investors that come and invest your money in Nigeria. Whatever profits you make, you'll be able to, repatriate it to wherever. That is to tell you that the government is going to provide an enabling environment because of the massive investment she has inherited from its predecessor, just like, the liabilities. But going forward, I believe if the necessary infrastructures, the past administration invested heavily in ICT, in digital economy, you collect. And, harnessing all these, features together, I'm very optimistic that in the nearest future, Nigeria will take its rightful place in the Committee of Nations.
I'll move to Dr. Jide Johnson, and I would like to get your view on the importance of having a unified currency. So we've seen the situation where the currency is different from Naira to dollar on the parallel market, the CBN rate, and even earlier in the week, there were some reports that the Naira had been devalued, which the CBN came out to say, no, the Naira hasn't been devalued. How important is it to have that unified rate, which President Bola Tinubu has promised, in ensuring that we have consistent growth in the economy?
I think that I pray and I hope that the president has the political will to see it through. It's only in Nigeria that you see people trade foreign currencies on the streets. It's only in Nigeria that you have two different values for your currency. There's parallel market, and like Nelson said, if this unified, I was happy with that. If this unified exchange rate is followed to the latter, you see that it will encourage foreign investment to come to Nigeria. However,
Dr. Jide Johnson,
grow your economy, it begins at home. Now, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
If the exchange rate, okay, if the exchange rate is unified and it is constant, it does not fluctuate like seconds, then you know that there's confidence in Naira, then there is ability for people to come and invest in Nigeria, and there's also the need for Nigerian local investors to also participate in other businesses abroad. So invariably to contribute to our GDP and as well as our GNP. So I support the president in following through with that. And in doing that, there must be a synergy between our fiscal policy and our monetary policy. In the last 8 years, you discover that central bank will be saying something. Central bank is in charge of the monetary policy. The Ministry of Finance,
definitely there needs to be more synergy, and I believe it's not just between the central bank and the monetary policies. I'm sorry, we'll have to close the conversation now. Thank you very much, Dr. Jide Johnson, a public affairs and policy analyst, and Nelson Ekujimi, media personality and good governance advocate. Thank you both for your contributions on Rubbin Minds.